This video is sponsored by me. No money was exchanged between Spitfire Audio and myself. I am not sponsored. This is all 100% my own opinion, and I just got early access to a beta version of the piano library. Hello, fellow music enthusiasts. This is Alvin from Alvin S. Wong Music, your companion to the vast universe of digital soundscapes. Today, diving into a very exciting new virtual instrument library that's out by Spitfire Audio called the BBC Symphony Orchestra Piano. And it not only captures the exquisite sound of a Steinway Model D grand, but it does so in that very same iconic BBC Maida Vale studios. By the way, 90% of the music in this video is just me improvising and playing on the VST itself, so sorry for any bad notes. Let's talk about the different editions of BBC Symphony Orchestra. There is the Discover, the Core Edition, and finally the Professional Edition. The Discover series has been wildly successful in the educational segment and been a staple and workhorse for new and budding composers with its free or minimal cost price tag. And the Pro version has been a solid choice for those wanting a complete, cohesive orchestral library with lots of options and customizations and articulations. And finally, in the middle is the Core Edition, which is my personal favorite and go-to with a good balance of providing a high quality level of mic mixes and capabilities and price point for memory and processing on your computer and also on your bank account and wallet. With the new piano instrument added to the BBCSO line, we now have a separately purchasable add-on for Core and Pro editions with matching increased levels of microphone mixes, or as they call it, signals, as the primary difference between the two. You may be asking at this point, where is the Discovery version? Well, the great news here is that Spitfire Audio have generously included a light piano version with limited sampling layers and only a single mic signal mix into the Discover. It is absolutely free to update for those who already have Discover, so that's absolutely fantastic. And I think that gives us some good confidence in the industry that Spitfire is listening and maintaining the BBCSO line well, so it continues to evolve. So what do you exactly get for Piano Core? At the time of this video in 2023, for $99 or 99 quid if you're in the UK, here are the key features and specs. You have a single standard signal mix. You have 4 round robins, 6 dynamic layers, and you get the ability to adjust reverb, tightness, hammers, and pedal volume control, and also the velocity curves. And all this will come in at about a 2.8 gigabyte size for your system to download. Of course, when you are playing, it won't eat up all that much room on your memory, as we'll soon see. And here's a look at the Piano Pro version. At the time of the video in 2023 here, it is going for $189, and here are the key features and specs. So it's a little bit larger at 35 gigabytes. And here is the main difference, which is 15 total signal options, and everything else is exactly the same as what you got in the Core version. And here is a look at the user interface. So you can see that there is a section in the middle here that looks like a mixer icon, and that's where you can pick and choose which of the 15 different signals from the various mics throughout the room, and even the 2 main mixes. You can blend them all here to your heart's desire, and that's what accounts for the larger size of the overall package to download, and also the memory footprint depending on your blend. If you're interested in this full list of mics, you can visit the website at Spitfire Audio or pause the video here to have a look. The main part I'll call your attention to are the Mix 1 and Mix 2 signals. 1 is what is loaded by default and is the only mix signal that you'll have in the Core version. And here you can see a description of what they're calling a more orchestral classical mix. So that's going to be a bit more traditional and where it sits within the room and how it's been EQ'd and so on and so forth. The second mix is a more hyped up, wider, vibrant mix, as they're mentioning it here, and more for cinematic purposes. It's an overused term, but to my ears, it wasn't a whole heck of a lot, and I wouldn't exactly call it that off the deep end or sound design or anything like that with Mix 2. In summary, here's a comparison table. As you can see, the only difference really is with the mic signal customizability line item. As in the core, you get the one initial traditional mix, and then for professional, you have the 15. Everything else is pretty much exactly the same, and the size differential at the very bottom just is accounted for based on the number of signals and samples that you're getting. Okay, so now let's get into playing with the sample libraries live. What I have here is Cubase 12, and I've loaded up two versions of the BBCSO Piano. I have the core version and also the pro version. Let's start off with the core version. So once again, this is the interface, and as you can see, it's quite simple and minimal. You have just the one instrument, obviously, here, as opposed to some of the other instruments in the BBCSO line, where if you go into them, you'll actually see a whole bunch of different options and articulations and things like that. With the piano, you just get the one. And here you have your usual expression and dynamics sliders. And over here with the single the knob, defaults as reverb, but you can also go into tightness, pedal volume, and hammer volume as well. So let's just play it right out of the box. Now I haven't I haven't done any other post-processing with this video or compression or any other EQ things to the signal. This is exactly as it comes out. I was about to say, yeah, all up and down the entire register, it just sounds fantastic. Okay, so that's the core version, and if I click on the effects, yeah, once again, that's pretty much the same stuff that we had here in the one big knob. And the mix here that you don't get to see and get to play around with, which I'll show you on the pro version, is just the traditional piano mix that we talked about earlier. Okay, now we're going to move on to the piano pro version. And as you can see here, this is what it looks like right out of the box. When you load this, it's going to default to the same exact mix, Piano Mix 1. And this is a blend that we mentioned that is exactly the same as the core one. Other than that, everything else is pretty much the same. If you click on the one knob here again, you can see that the options you have are exactly the same as the core. Okay, so that was Piano Mix 1. Now let's go to Piano Mix 2. Now, as we mentioned before, it is a hyped, wider mix version that's meant for cinematic or not as realistic in a scoring studio, but meant for syncing to picture or other purposes. So let's give it a go. Okay, that was mix 2. Now, just for fun, let's try out some of these. Maybe I'll just try the Decatree here. I won't go into all the other 14 or 13 different signals, but just so you get a taste of what kind of customization you can have. This is what a Decatree signal sounds like. Okay, and finally, let's go back to the original piano mix 1, which is exactly the same as what you'd get on the core version of this library. All right, now I'll go through my conclusion and summary here on what I think about this piano sample library by Spitfire Audio. I think it is absolutely excellent that Spitfire Audio have put the light version of the piano right in Discover, and those who already own it can go ahead and get an update and be able to complete their orchestral palette with another percussive instrument, the piano, in that room in Maida Vale. So that's wonderful. And for those of us with the core and the pro versions as well, just like those in Discover, we now have the option to extend everything with a perfectly matched mix of a VST in that room, and we don't have to mess around with mix, with reverb, EQ, blending, compression, anything else to have a piano in that room. Previously, you would have to load up another piano VST and manually adjust the taste. There's a gorgeous quality and consistent sample recording of that Steinway Model D in that room, and that is no doubt the exceptional concert pianist there from BBCSO, Elizabeth Burley. So it sounds very well balanced and very cohesive throughout the entire 88 keys with the round robins and everything else. I actually did have an issue with one of the notes, but I soon learned, with the help of the Spitfire Audio team, that it was actually a hardware problem with my Roland keyboard here. Thankfully, I was able to find a firmware update that fixed it. All right, other things I wanted to bring up was the usage of this library. Who is it for? I think it is, as they mentioned in a lot of the literature, and as you can imagine, since it's part of the BBCSO series, it is meant for orchestral scoring or more traditional classical applications, and not so much for your pop genres or anything else. The other thing I was alluding to throughout this video was that the memory footprint is absolutely stellar for this library, considering how well it sounds. I found that for mix 1, mix 2, and playing around with it, it never really went north of about 600 megabytes loaded into memory. So I think with that, and it's fairly small overall hard drive size, whether you go with the Pro or you go with the core version, and of course with the Discovery, it is going to be ideal for mobile workflows and sketching. And the other thing I will call out compared to some other piano libraries, I think overall Spitfire Audio have done a great job in partnering with, I think they're called the DICE team that helped out with the UI, and it is very minimal and easy to use, and the mouse overs I found absolutely helpful in describing what the various options and even the mixes were about. And finally, at a price of $99 or $199 for the Pro version, I think it is pretty fairly priced and quite competitive, considering how well this library sounds and works right out of the box with the existing BBCSO line. And now for some very minor nitpicks and other thoughts. I believe the genres that the library can fit to are quite narrow in that it's orchestral and traditional. I don't see it being used for anything in EDM at the extreme, or rock or jazz or anything like that. In a pinch you could, and you can add some plugins and stuff like that, but that's not what this is meant for, and that's totally fine. The other thing is the value of core versus the pro versions. Specifically, I'm wondering if the value of going for pro is actually all that high, considering most of the people are just going to be using the Piano Mix 1, and all the rest of the other microphones are great, but probably more for final mix engineers or mastering engineers in the workflow. Who knows, maybe we'll get Spitfire to throw in some fancy features like sympathetic resonance. I know many have never been able to implement that easily with scripting and stuff like that, but one can wish, so here's wishing for more. Once again, these are all super nitpicky and kind of selfish things that I want. In conclusion, I think this is a wonderful sample library and hugely inspiring. And when I was playing with it, and I found that I would just forget about the gear and who made the sample library, and everything else went away, and I just enjoyed the writing and the playing. Finally, I wanted to just have a shout out to the entire BBC Symphony Orchestra, to Spitfire Audio for putting together this wonderful library that, with a piano now, it really is a capstone piece that fills in that gap, and everyone can sketch and have a beautiful piano sound right there in the room without messing around with adding third-party piano libraries. And it's free in Discover, so awesome. Well, that wraps it up for me in this video, folks. Thank you so much for watching. I think you'll agree with me that piano libraries to musicians and composers are like clamps for woodworkers. You can't have too many. And for me, this particular one by Spitfire Audio is something that I will enjoy quite a bit, I'm sure, and it has a place in my template for sure. Thanks again for watching. Please hit that like and subscribe, and leave a comment below if you want to see more piano libraries and comparisons. I do have a whole heck of a lot of other piano libraries, as I just alluded to, and I'd be happy to share some comparisons. I have a lot of piano libraries.
I have a lot of piano libraries.
Take care and have a great rest of the week.